writing. So I am so if we are looking our Asian type like a Sanskrit literature, yes, definitely I'm going to talk about this is the eco-criticism in Indian English literature, but I would like to give a brief introduction about the eco-criticism in our Sanskrit literature. So how can we forget our great epic poet Kalidas? So Kalidas also in his work Meghduttam discuss this idea of eco-criticism. So it is very not we can say that a very new term. It's come from our Asian time. So if we want to present on eco-criticism, we have so many topics. We have a wide and huge material for eco-criticism, and I'm trying a little bit to represent a more idea about the Indian eco-criticism in Indian writing in English. So and yeah, especially in our Gujarati literature also talk so many authors talk about it that idea of eco-criticism. We also have seen in our classroom that how eco-criticism, post-colonial effect on eco-criticism, then the post-colonialism, even the globalization. Quick. Yeah. I'm trying. Okay. Okay, sir. So we are seeing that. So now let's go jump toward our main presentation. So what is the eco-criticism? So eco-criticism was a term coined in the late 1970s by the combining criticism with a shortened from the ecology. So I don't want to read a whole, and this is the definition of eco-criticism. Basically, eco-criticism is made by the two words, eco and criticism. Eco means this earth, this environment, this nature, and criticism means study. So eco-criticism is about the study of nature, study of the earth, study of a thing which is around us. Eco-criticism asks questions such as in a literature that how is nature represent in the novel, poem, or play? What role does the physical and geographical setting play in the structure of the novel? How do our metaphor of the land influence the way we treat it? And how is science in the form of a genetic and engineering, technological or reproduction and sexuality open the critical structure the term of the effect of the science upon the land. So these are observation I have taken from these articles from the Membrane. So now let's jump toward the example like Indian English author how depict the eco-criticism in their work. So first I would like to give the idea of the Ruskin bond. So there, according to Dr. Cynthia, that there has always been a close relationship between nature and literature all over the world. So Bond, a true artist, like a aesthetic scenes, a vision of a paradise in the sunlight and a green of the earth, in the beauty of the human face and the wealth of a human life, even in a objects that are apparently insightful, and nature, life, sense, forms, love, and the secret of the divine power are therefore the key word of his credo as a writer. So, in the work of Ruskin Bond, we found that the depiction of eco, or we can say nature, is very quite a positive way. So, for example, in his work, in the Night Plan of Deoli, it is taken by his work. Our trees still grow in Dehra. So when it is a short story, when we read the short story written by him, we found that there is the most of the depiction of Dehradun and Masuri, and yes, that describe the scene of Dehradun and Masuri, and almost invariably from the setting of his work and reflect in his art. So they depict a very good and we can say a positive thing of nature. So according to Kumari Shikha, when history is examined, now the another example is of Raja Rao. So how Raja Rao depict eco-criticism in his work. So Raja Rao is the prominent writer of the Indian English novel. His depiction of the South Indian village culture and environmental setting is a true depiction of the relationship between man and nature. The another is the Arkenarayan. Arkenarayan wrote in the same decade and have given life to the plays Malgudi. Or it can be said that he has developed a place as a character which can be seen in almost all his prose fiction bearing the same features. So another writer is the Bengali writer Kamla Markande. Kamla Markande, in her novel Nectar in a Sieve and the Flood, which is taken from her novel, The Nectar in Sieve has a very well description of the control of nature over the human being. So in his work, she wanted to depict the there is like a wild animal. Nature is like a wild animal that you have trained to work for you. So first we have seen that Bond, how Bond depict the nature in his work, then Raja Rao, then Arkanara, and then now slowly and steadily we move toward the depiction of ecocriticism, where we are depicting really that we are human being destroying the nature, and we are believing that nature is for our joy, nature is for our peace. So it is not true. Nature doing thing as according their cycle, and human being is not yes, there is no doubt that human being is connected with nature, but nature and human being is two different things. So it we have to mind it. So the another prominent writer is the Anita Desai. So also Anita Desai, she is trying to close this gap between the post-colonialism and this eco-criticism. So nature, which include the animal, plants, birds, has a strong presence in almost all her works, and known in the Indian English fiction for unsharing in the psychological novel. And Desai uses the external landscape to portray the interior state of mind. And here I putting one example that her example, his work Cry the Peacock. And the next example is the Rachel Zima's theory of eco-criticism might have raised the eyebrow of many writers, but it indeed has led to inclusion of many novels under his branch, and she has tried to close the gap between the post-colonialism and eco-criticism by analyzing the texts that depict on the range of the engagement with the environment and that complication and extend the notion of a place and connections. So in this slide and next two slide, I'm going to discuss some of the important work by Arundhati Roy and Ghosh. So Arundhati, the God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. In this work, she discusses the same eco-critical idea that how we are destroying the nature, and Arundhati Roy is the God of a small thing is a depiction of a exploitation of nature by people for the sake of a progress and a modernization, which is a privileging topic of the novel. So in this novel we can say that for the sake of globalization we are harming eco-criticism. So this is the main idea of the novel, and the creator here has given her sharp familiarity with the present squeezing nature issue, and the writer raised her voice for the earth, which is presently under an incredible risk of a contaminations. Right now, uncovered the enormous databasement of the nature, as well as the considered the explanation for its dehumanization. This observation done by the Dipti Chopra in her article. So now let's jump toward the how Arkan. I mentioned in Arkanine, but that was very briefly. So here I put a full slide how Arkanarayan's work discuss this idea of eco-criticism. So Ali Sarkar observed in his article that Arkanarayan is the man eater. It is the character from the Malgudis. To bring out the it is the fertile ground. So in his work Malgudi, Arkanarayan depict that how man eater okay, so is it visible? Screen is visible? Okay. Yes, the main eater of the Malgudi is the fertile ground of the applying the eco-criticism. To bring out the eco-critic connection of connotation of this novel, it must be considered as an allegory, and the symbolical indication must be extended up to the issue of environmental disaster. The focal point of this novel is the massive killing of animal and the ruthless process of a shuffling. The activities of the taxidermy details here can be extended to show the larger scale of environmental disruption. How it is that how Arkenara by the character of man-eater discuss this idea of eco-criticism. So we are harming the animals, we are harming the nature. So it is one kind of allegory which represent that we are destroying, or we are making a disaster in environment. Now Amitav Ghosh's novel. So this observation is done by the Sandhya in his article that Ghosh's novels are not only the substantial body of a work which deal with the historical issue and social issue, but also the author has dealt with the environmental issue. So in his one interview, Amitav Ghosh mentioned that I write the book that I want to read about the things that interest me. I am curious about the environment, about history, words, and language. The idea of writing a book where you learn those things out, the five seems and boring because these are the textual make life interesting. So it is the idea of Amitav Ghosh that Amitav Ghosh does not only describe these historical facts and historical issue, but also put a light on the environmental. Still, camera is not working, sir. Right.
हाँ सर ऑन करो
Okay. Now, okay. Yeah. Yes, sir. Now is it? It is visible. Okay. So, screen is visible. Slide. Okay. So now next example is the Hungry Tide. This is a very fascinating and interesting work that discuss the idea of eco-criticism by Amitav Ghosh. So Ghosh's masterpiece, The Hungry Tide, is considered the first work in the Indian English fictional fiction who boldly raised the ecological issue first time in the Indian and try his best to protect the environment. He depicts the association between the people and the fauna and flora and the physical environment, and in doing so, this work depicts both the calamity and the duplicity that were inherent in the conservation effort in the Sundarbans. In the novel of The Hungry Tide, the novelist reveals the tension between human beings within the same community and that ties with the natural environment. So I am trying to depict in a three types. That first, I'm taking the example. I'm taking the example of Ruskin Bond, and another example of that R.K. Narayan and Amitav Ghosh, and some more famous. Some famous authors, and now I would like to give the how Indian English writing in a poetry try to. Okay. So how Indian in a poetry we are trying to depict that eco-criticism. So firstly, I would like to give the example of Torudat. So this observation is done by the Neutha in his article that Torudat is one of the famous Indo-Anglican poet. By birth, she is an Indian, and later she went to France and next to England, and finally she returned to England and learned Sanskrit. Through she is a converted Christian, and she wrote a number of poems on Indian mythical stories. Most of her poems have an Indian theme and Indian background, but this poem Lotus is a part of a natural poem. It is a poem of a royal beauty and fixed significance. So Lotus is a lyric with a tale, the legendary tale of how this a flower, the lotus, came into the existence. So ecological overtone in a river by the Krishna Swami Ramanujam. So, in this poem, river, the narrator talk the river Vaikai, flowing through the ancient city of Madurai in the state of Tamil Nadu in India. And the poet A.K. Ramanujam brings out of the truth about the river, bring a summer and reminiscent about the flood and destruction caused by it. And the river is given spiritual significance and considered holy in the past. And in present, Madurai in the poem has been sketched by the narrator who visit to see the culture, but to him it is a state of a dissolution. And he observed that the poet, past and present, only speak of the river during the rain and floods, whereas Ramanujam investigate the relation between the human and river in the everyday world. It shows how the river prays uh, to have a originate from the that origins from the Ganga, and has today lost all its beauty and has become a symbol of environmental and cultural degradation. The poet's understanding of environmental is clearly noted in this poem. So we are trying to depict, so at a first we are trying to depict nature as a very positive way. We are not mentioning that issue connected with nature. We are destroying nature. We are just portraying nature for our own sake, for our beauty. But later on we are understanding that we are destroying the beauty of nature. And that theme, with that theme, we are trying, we are started to writing a particular works. So as I earlier told you that I tried to depict in a three way. First in how prose writing, then fiction writing, and now in a poetry writing. So and these are some of the example of poems which depict this idea of eco-criticism. But this poem is very, we can say, very not so much written in this century. It's written so long. So slowly and steadily, when we read some particular poem, we get the idea that how in a work, in a literature, in an Indian English writer, we are we are describing this idea of eco-criticism. So it is a short understanding of me, and I want to present here about that. About that how we are depicting this eco-critical idea in our old English literature. And we can say when we are started to write that English words. Yes, there is no doubt that we are moving toward so many further things now. The ecology, eco-criticism, we are harming, we are destroying post-colonial theory with this idea. But it's a depict that we are starting like this and we are moving toward like that. So these are my citation, and thank you.
Okay, so you used the word taxidermy, in one of the slides. Taxidermy. So what is that? Are you aware about that? In Arkan slide, I think it was. Taxidermy. Okay, by the time, let me see the other things. That was this slide.